slide, so he will join.
Okay, we are now recording.
So I will try to. Nah. But let me drink some water. I have my problem with my throat. All right, let's start it officially this time. Thank you guys for coming for this March's Urban Computing Foundation TAC meeting. This meeting, based on our discussion last time, we will focusing more on the strategy section. We will review our budget of 2021, and then as a roundtable discussion, let's talk a little bit about what do we want to achieve together as TAC, and how can we make the TAC more relevant or agenda more relevant, and so on and so forth. And last time, I think people were asking about the budget and how are we spending money. Gail, so this is our 2021 budget.
Yeah,
And
and I can walk through what these are.
Sure.
Thank you, Sean. Hey, Eb. So this is kind of a high level. I didn't want to throw in just too much detail to bog everyone down with, but this is what the budget looks like for Urban Computing Foundation for 2021. So in community engagement, we have a small amount of money budgeted for press releases and for like small updates to the website. So it's like a small, we have a bucket so that if we need, new posts added or things change, the creative services team can add stuff for us. And then if we have press releases, then we have a little bit of money allocated for like the wire fees and to have someone help write those for us. Excuse me. The legal subtotal, that amount that we see there is to go towards the trademark renewal for Mapzen. Theirs is coming up next year. Their trademark renewal, we have basically 1 year to get it updated. So we have a little bit of money tucked away here to focus on that. Staff and operations subtotal, that's your kind of operational program managers. That would be me or someone similar to me doing the work to support the foundation. And then in development, you have, excuse me, I'm sharing Sean's tickle in my throat today. That's like going to be GitHub, the cost of having our Zoom account and this is for the whole foundation, the Zoom account and like hosting, just small expenses, they kind of add up there. So what you'll see is, and we took out quite a bit to try and make the budget a little pretty lean. The total expenses are $45,000. Because we lost 2 members last year, membership revenue is at $30,000. So last year we spent very little of our community engagement expense. So that was able to carry over. And since we didn't have events and we had planned to have events, the money allocated to that carried over. And at that time we had revenue of $60,000 a year. So we had extra. That $21,000 rolled over from last year. And that kind of helped cover the balance. And then we have a forecasted balance of $6,000. What this means, though, is that our bills are all paid for this year, for 2021, and we're able to, continue running and keep things up and running as far as the LF side of things. But it means that next year, there's not really enough money to cover the full expenses. So I want to be totally transparent with you guys so you have a full kind of vision here about the future of the foundation as a whole. So this doesn't mean that the projects living in Urban Computing Foundation die or go away, because they're all very successful and really growing a lot and have a lot of usage. If we decide, as a project, that's you as the TAC and the governing board, we're to make the decision to say, okay, let's make it an unfunded project. That would mean that you'd stop having governing board members, but you would be crowdfunded as needed, so people can donate money to the foundations to keep them running. And LF would continue to pay for, domain renewals, GitHub things, and you could still ping us for stuff that you need to help support. They'd still pay for the websites. So LF would just kind of pay for that directly, pay for the website, domains, GitHub, things like that. It would just be like a community run model. And we do have other projects that do that, especially if projects that have a lot of technical engagement like ours, but have less kind of the business side engagement, do kind of move to a crowdfunding model. And we, like LF, can help manage that. We can help set up the accounts, and our finance team would still help you guys like bring in the money and process it and all that stuff. So that would be kind of a way, like if membership revenue doesn't increase, that's a way for the foundation to continue receiving support and all the projects to get support. It just wouldn't be, you wouldn't have like me, or you wouldn't have like someone kind of overseeing the end-to-end operations. So that's like a community run model. Um, so I'll stop there. Does anyone have any questions yet on? So Travis, I see you have a question. The remaining paying members are Uber and Here, and the membership dues for the premier level are $15,000 a year. We did add a general membership tier that has a much smaller amount. Because it is smaller, we'd have to add a lot of general members to help like really make a dent in kind of what we need. But if we were to add one more general member, it would have the project at kind of more at a break even point for 2022. So yeah, what's left is Uber in Here. Yeah, Javier, that's right. So as it is right now, in the current state to run the foundation the way it is right now, with like me having LF legal team, LF G&A, and LF marketing and creative, and LF IT, that's about three premier members would kind of be the minimum you'd need to keep running. But like if the foundation decides, maybe we're going to focus on just being community run and being technical, crowd. I know that in the past we've had companies say, hey, can I contribute to like a project directly? So crowdfunding would be an option for something like that. And I wanted to be like, since you are the technical community, you are the ones who are really seeing the growth and seeing the usage and seeing the real value. In LF, we see the value of this and we want it to be successful. So we're here to help make it as successful as possible, whatever path that looks like. Okay, Ib is asking, is the UCF overhead fixed, or if we add more members, does the overhead go up? So the G&A might go up a little bit. It's like a formula model, but it wouldn't go up a lot. It's like 0.5% or something like that. You'd see a small percentage go up on G&A. Staff and operations, so that's your program management fee for someone like me. So I'd say adding more members and increasing the amount doesn't make that fee go up. If the foundation starts growing a lot and starts having a lot, like if you're having a ton of events and you're having a lot of stuff, at that point, if you quadruple the members and had a full going outreach committee and you had a lot happening, that program management fee would go up eventually, but it's not something that happens quickly. And development, that's primarily on usage. So that depends on how much your infrastructure is being used. So if you added hosting to that, so it's more on needs. But by default, no, the UCF overhead doesn't really go up until the needs starts happening. So just adding more members doesn't cause the fee to go up. Having more activities would cause the fee to go up. And if you got to a certain size and wanted to start doing more marketing and more events, you'd bring in, that's more services and activities that would cause those fees to go up because there are event fees, or if you want to have a lot of PR, there are fees for that stuff. So it just depends on what the kind of strategy is for the project and what the activities are. What other questions?
So for 2021 budget, we have 7,000 allocated to community engagement. What are those go to?
That is there's a bucket set aside for website updates. We didn't use that at all last year. It's just $5,000. And then there is a small bucket set aside for press releases. Those come out, we only had one last year. Those can range from like 1,500 to 3,000 or more, depending on what the wire fees are at the time. Or there's like the package, it's an external firm we use. There's a package where we write the press release and the PR firm releases it over the newswire, or there's a package where we ask them to write it. And since we don't really have a PR person for UCF, and I'm not a PR person, we usually have them write those. So we're budgeted for about one of those. So it's website updates, PR plus newswire, and then I believe your Zoom is bundled into that as well. And that's for the full foundation. So for these meetings, the board meetings, and any other meetings that happen as part of UCF.
Cool. So we do have money set aside for a website update if we want to.
I see Ib asking a question. How about transferring new frameworks? It requires legal help if we go to community model. I don't know the answer to that actually. I don't know. I'm not sure. I know there is legal involved, and so for trademark transfers, depending, I'm not a trademark expert at all by any means, but like if there has to be a trademark filing, sometimes we have to work with a third party legal firm for that, legal counsel, to do trademarky stuff, and they do have a fee for that. So it just depends. I'd have to ask, get some more information from our legal team. To rephrase, would we be able to take in new projects in the community model? Yeah, yes, you should be able to. Yeah. But again, I'd want to I had not asked our legal team prior to this call how that part operates. So I'll have to ask them just again. I'll take an action item too to kind of get some more information on that.
The 2021 budget is already fixed. So, I mean, so we have already the bills paid for the entire 2021.
Yeah, so we're good for 2021. It's 2020, so we have, some time to plan, but the months move pretty quickly, so we want to start thinking about how to move for 2022. Because if kind of the project, you and the governing board decide, let's go to a community model in 2022, then we want to start doing that as soon as possible so we can make sure it's a really like smooth transition and you have full support the whole way.
Cool. So let's move on from there. I think Harvard needs to leave early. Maybe we can just start discussing what should we achieve as a TAC, and how can we move forward from here.
Item 40 got half finished, so I put some bullets here, but I mean, generally, I think it'd be good to have a little bit of a round table. I think the last meetings, there has been a lot of information from Sean and perhaps myself, but, just get the kind of feedback on what, why are we calling into this meeting? Why are we here? Why do we care? For every one of us, how do we make the best use of our time here? And so how do we make this meeting more relevant to everyone here? The slide is messed up, but obviously one of the things that we're focusing on right now is how can we promote and develop the UCF? And one of the intentions here was, can we invite new members, UCF users? And that was basically it. The others are coming. There's some bullets here from a different slide. So this is something that we will comment on in other slides, but how can we create the most value out of these meetings? I mean, some members here maybe are here more as observers, and that's fine, but
Sorry.
so I see a couple of people here. Well,
I would maybe jump in and maybe rephrase it to be more kind of project focused. I think there's like some really successful projects that have come together under the Urban Computing Foundation throughout the last year. And there's like VisGL, really productive, critical sort of planning and TAC meetings going on, with respect to that project. It seems, could it make sense to just basically like roll this all together and have this, that restructure the TAC potentially to be more focused on kind of the refactor the TAC, now that we have kind of know what the state of things are, what the projects that have the kind of most interest to folks in this foundation, and have it be more focused on kind of like the project logistics. Does it make sense to have those as kind of two separate meetings?
Yeah, so we have a TAC or technical steering committee for the VSGL meetings where we work through the meeting details. But I guess this is the meeting where we would do all the projects. We currently have 3 top-level projects. And how do we promote and how do we add new top-level projects and so on?
Mhm.
I'm looking through the list. We don't have that many external people. We have Michael is here. I don't know if you'd care to give us some thoughts on.
Yeah, I can try to give some thoughts. So, yeah, I don't know. I followed let's say the foundation for, I don't know, about 2 years or something. So we met before the pandemics, and I'm just a user on one side, but on the other hand, also, let's say, interested in how open source community building and foundation building works at large. So we have an open source project ourselves, which is a Zumo simulation of urban mobility. And so that's why I'm very interested also in this discussion here today, how you think this problem on how to have a sustainable model for open source is working. And so we are with Zumo part of the Eclipse Foundation. So yeah, I don't want to do advertisements here, but the point is there is more than just Linux Foundation. Just to say this could also be an option here. If you want me to explain how we do this, then I will, but I don't want to, occupy your meeting here.
Yeah, I mean, any discussion could be had, right? And I mean, ultimately, this is about the health of this project, and is UCF and Linux Foundation, the right home? Because if we really don't get traction here, and I'm not suggesting that I'm thinking along those lines, but it's all about, really taking these projects to their potential. And being able to get them, first to open source and then to open governance, as part of UCF were huge steps for us. I think we need to think about how do we take the next step. And, I mean, and I've...
Yeah, if I may, contributing here. So I think, probably my way of thinking is that we probably need to go back a little bit to the basics, right, of why we are here in a way. So the Urban Computing Foundation probably started with a very much bigger and ambitious picture in it, but as it is going, I think, well, first of all, we have to think pragmatic. We have a full year paid for UCF, and that's, I mean, it's quite some money and it's quite some resources. So I think, we should, not change. We should actually try to see how we can maximize the investment that is available for us within this year. So that's instead of discussing, we move to a different foundation. Although with that being said, probably we want to put ourselves a deadline in something like September, October, where we decide like, hey, so we continue in UCF as it is. So we continue, with the community engagement model, or should we move to another foundation? I think there's like a milestone that we have to put somewhere around September, October, whatever we consider. But meanwhile, I think right now, I mean, the resources are there, the bills are paid. I think it would be a pity not to use the resources that we have right now. And with that being said, it's like, how do we use the resources that we have in a way that maximizes the interest of this team, and how potentially give us a longer term potential this one. And for that, I think going to basics means right now the biggest engagement that we have on the foundation is around the VSGL framework. That's the reality of it. I think there is the MapSend, which I think is great, but in a way, I mean, there doesn't seem to be something that we have the capability within this core team that we are here to influence too much, in full honest. So I think it can stay there, but it's not going to help us away. So I think in that sense, VSGL has to be the place. And for me, what is the value of a foundation like this? If like this week, and I'm sorry, I'm actually owe you still an email, we got a perfect example of that. Google, it's, let's remove names, but a big organization is interested on, having some parts of VSGL further developed to increase interoperability with other products. That's a fantastic type of project for the UCF to channel in a way. And companies inside, the UCF to kind of like then enable either through some contractors or the companies or whoever it is. But the way that I see the UCF is that place where more than promotion, we actually increase the interoperability of this GL and kind of like make it reach bigger places in that sense. And the big advantage that we have is that this GL runs under an open governance model versus other open source projects out there, that are not like that. So in that sense, we are like the most real open source project right now that are for geospatial data visualization available right now on the industry. And I think that's an asset that we should be able to sell, we should be able to leverage, and then eventually we should be able to get companies to invest in, being like Facebook, Google. I mean, the ones that were before, honestly, should probably consider investing in here. So, but with that being said, I mean, then what is the role of the TAC? I think this potentially merging these two things. I don't know if it makes sense, because I know that at the BCL you guys talk much more technical in some areas that personally I wouldn't be able even to follow on some of those meetings. So I'm not sure exactly if we merge them, but I do agree that we should orient ourselves towards the promotion of a coherent kind of open source product. And in this case, I think the most obvious is BCL. Because that's the majority of the people that are in here. So that's a little bit my picture. And I do have ideas about how we can, increase the interest and, how we could leverage these resources and so on. But just talking about processes alone is not going to help us. It's not going to make any difference. It's just going to get, less people coming to these meetings. And yeah, and then in September, we'll have to decide to do something else. Yeah.
It's good feedback.
So along those lines, is it time to maybe refactor the TAC to, maybe update the membership to align more with kind of like how the strategic importance of the strategic focus of kind of the Urban Computing Foundation is for pragmatic reasons, largely kind of gravitating around BizGL and the activity and interest there?
I will agree to that.
I think there's a fair amount of TAC members who if we look at just kind of attendance, I'm guilty of this as well. I've sort of moved on where I'm like 100% professionally focused on this stuff. And, because of that, if it doesn't make sense for me personally on this TAC, I can step back and make room for other people who are more dedicated and focused to this stuff, either professionally or directly contributing to these projects.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do a round of reaching out to current TAC members, and also, I propose to inviting each project have a lead member to be on the TAC, so will be more involvement from the actual project side.
But I think one of the most important is if we set as the goal of the foundation, if we refactor what is the goal of the foundation or the TAC in a way towards, increasing the usage of BizGL and its ecosystem and so on, then I think we can have probably a much more direct kind of type of conversations, which I think should be in here, strategic conversations around, hey, how can we, maybe, advertise this in this forum, how we can maybe, does anybody have someone knows in a company that, we can, so essentially kind of work this team as a business development type of group around the promotion of the BizGL. And then I think, that's the way that I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a good direction. We actually have I think we put in some content here along the line here. So there are you look at the membership, and then if you want to, Cardo, other companies that are heavily invested in BizGL framework, we can reach out to them, and there are things that on the line we're considering, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I prepared slides here, so I can go through this, and I think it's very much in line with what you're saying. But I think we could, I think this is a good charter, right? So the TAC is about the promotion and development of the UCF, and obviously, focusing on the most active projects, but also how can we get more members? How can we get more projects? How can we build out this thing? So that makes a lot of sense.
The other thing that attracted me about UCF, by the way, sorry, just to add on this, which I think probably I was thinking, if we manage to kind of get enough members to actually kind of contributing here, could also be a good place for actually sourcing projects that like benefits all of us, benefit interoperability, among this framework, but that we don't. I mean, that instead of like one company paying, that we can all chip in a way, right? So I think that is something that like we always said, and I know that's always been on the board kind of like of the UCF, right? Actually haven't seen any project actually really funded by UCF. So really, that for me that will also be a very big part of UCF, trying to find resources to kind of like pay for the things that like will benefit the entire ecosystem, not just one single company.
Yeah, to me, I think that's exactly what TAC should be doing, right? This is basically create a forum. Like, for example, Javier, you came to the TAC saying, I have this project, I have interesting, looking for fundings, and then other company who are also part of UCF or we are familiar with, oh, I heard of, Google might be interested in this, and we bring other players on the table and we come together to work on promoting collaborations, work on same project. And UCF might not necessarily have the exact funding to fund everything, but chipping a little bit here, but mostly bringing members that could be interested in using UCF as a platform to actually make this happen is what, I think that's what TAC can do.
Realistically, we haven't been too successful with that. To just be kind of real, I think, not that I disagree with like that sort of vision for things. I think when we've talked about it before, maybe through a combination of like not having like a clear path for funding to clearly and directly go towards kind of the specific needs, or potentially it's because of like the needs not being perfectly aligned with the consensus around those needs, and that being the direction or stuff like that. So maybe that gets more into kind of like the next steps or going forward. But if that, it's going to be one of the kind of the core functions of the Urban Computing Foundation, sitting above VisGL to kind of enable funding specifically to go towards development and like tangible technical work. We need to like kind of reflect on what hasn't been working there and what to change.
I mean, I think one thing that could help, and we never did a TAC, but I think could potentially help on that direction, is that we should have like as a TAC group, if we are like focused on VisGL, like we were saying, have like a very clear picture of things that could actually be done, that could be fundable, right? Because there's cases where from the external are going to come and say like, hey, could someone help me to get this done and so on, and then we can maybe make it happen if it's good and so on. But also, I mean, there is areas of VisGL that could be already funded that each of us have in our minds, but we're not really necessarily making like too public around it. And I know, I mean, and that also has conflicted a little bit apparently with the legal aspects of the Linux Foundation, which I think we should clear out very, very well if this is actually like the direction we're going. Because when we tried sometimes to do something around money, it really came into trouble.
Yeah, I think we made some progress on it. Now we have at least a clear statement of the budget. It's been kind of hard to nail down exactly what that means. And obviously the first step is to understand how much money is there and, how much money we would get if we add additional members. And then we had other problems. I mean, we can actually go into the slides, Jan, because I have prepared.
Which one?
Well, from the start.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, on the funding side of it, it's I mean, there are two things, right? One is like, you know, the funding that is in the UCF, how do we even manage it? How much is even available, you know, out of the kind of membership fees? And, you know, once we understand that, then of course we have additional work to do, that how do we govern that money? If we actually have a chunk of money, how do we decide? And I guess we as a TAC would be the people who decide how that is being spent. And right now there's not a lot of money. But, you know, then the question is, how do people want to fund this, right? If we have big companies out there, you know, that want to fund something, would they like to go directly to, you know, various companies that are part of the ecosystem and landscape? We would just have a list of companies who can provide those services. Or would they want to go and channel the funding through this? So if there is a big contract, let's say 100K, that someone wants to invest to improve, you know, should we offer that option to kind of channel it through the UCF? You know, maybe for some companies they can, you know, they're more comfortable with, you know, funding an open source foundation rather than go directly. But then obviously we have to have a very efficient way of them coming together and understand, and you know, how we then, because ultimately someone needs to do the work, right? So then we're kind of funneling the money somewhere. Yeah, I mean, let me quickly go through these ideas then that we had. So we had a board meeting, you know, some week ago, and we discussed these things. And the directions from the board meetings that I got, that I felt was pretty clear, is like, how do we kind of list companies on the page, right? And certainly companies like Unfolded, that I and Sean come from, and Carter are putting a lot of money into this, really the ones who are paying for the development right now. We would love to be on this page, but the kind of directions was that it should be very inclusive. If we're going to have a landscape, you know, really any company should be able to join. And so, you know, list themselves there, right? And it shouldn't be like, and I think there's a lot of value to that. And so basically you would have 4 different tiers. No, you jump to a different slide. You know, there would be the members, obviously the ones that are actually paying. Then there would be a contributor section, and then basically any org stating they're contributing to UCF projects, whether they are or not, basically can list themselves as a contributor. Companies can also just apply to list themselves as users. We are someone who's using this, you know, it's important to us. And then there is some kind of, and maybe I didn't get the name right there, but some kind of service providers. And anyone who, you know, builds products on top of this, or offers services around this would be able to list themselves there. And so, you know, certainly, you know, Unfolded, we offer, you know, development work as does Carter, right? So, but it would be very inclusive. Anyone can register to be listed, because, and it's good because we get more names, the ecosystem looks stronger. And it's also non-exclusive. You can list yourselves in multiple sections. You know, obviously you can only be a member in the member section if you're actually a paid member, but otherwise it's extremely open. And we discussed a little bit, you know, some foundations, some projects have automated forms and stuff, but I mean, at the start we could just have some UCF email where people could ask themselves to be registered. And then we go to the next, the concept slide, Sean. So this is a little bit more detailed. This is actually segmenting it into different categories, like map providers and data visualization. Maybe you want to full screen this one. It's very hard to see. Oh, this is actually already up?
Yeah, it's actually already on our website, but we haven't updated. It's also interactive, so you can zoom in.
Okay. So yeah, so I mean, we would.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I think there's a lot of like placeholder data on that. I remember we worked a lot on this, somewhat on this in like 2019, maybe. And
Travis has
never really got it across.
It was before my time as well. I took out some of the data, but we definitely need an owner for it to help. I have a limit on my technical capabilities personally to help update this.
So just to be clear, that this doesn't necessarily, so the company logos on here doesn't necessarily have to be the members of UCF. we could just be
Yeah.
like the 4 tiers of things that it was just mentioned.
Yeah, what Ib mentioned. So I know I updated, this is a while back, the premium members, and of course you can tell it needs to be updated now. So that's the only area where we had UCF members. I think the last time we updated this was in April or May. But the rest of it is placeholder data, and it can be much like, I mean, Ib said, anyone can submit to have their information added. It's stored in our GitHub, on the UCF GitHub. So anyone can submit a PR to say, hey, I offer, I use this here, or I use viz.gl here, I use deck.gl here, so I want to be added to this in this way. It's definitely something we need to kind of architect a bit more to decide what categories you guys want. But really, yes, anyone can add their information. They would just submit a PR, and then whoever the landscape owner is would just approve that PR to have them merged and submitted.
But just for the record, I mean, because we might be confusing things here. So this was an initiative, if I recall, Travis, but from back on the days, we thought it could be useful. One of the ideas of the foundation was to also kind of like show to the world, I mean, the ecosystem of projects that exist, because we thought, it was very fragmented ecosystem, and it wasn't clear what was out there, but it was actually nothing related to UCF. I mean, like UCF projects will be just part of it like any other projects. That's the goal of this landscape, was nothing around showcasing UCF, kind of like contributors or anything like that. It was the entire industry. And I think, that was actually by taking these from other kind of foundations on the Linux Foundation. That's actually one of the typical projects that these foundations do, which is try to provide a comprehensive picture. So for anybody that comes to geospatial new, they know what exists. And now, so I don't think we should mix this up with what Eve is saying or anything around, what makes the foundation.
I agree. I think you're right, Javier. And maybe this starts to get tangential to kind of Ib's slide. So maybe we should bounce back to those, because I think it's sort of secondary, maybe important, but
yeah. So
a second priority.
So I actually wasn't aware that this page was live, but I think that something similar to this shows the companies that are actually in these tiers and then trying to actively promote and grow that, but focused on people who are actually involved with UCF is what I had in mind here. And then if we continue to next slide, next one here. So then the other thing we discussed also in the board meeting was, can we promote UCF in meetups, conferences, and so on? And so the action here would be one action could be to prepare UCF approved quote unquote slides as a resource. I made an attempt. I had a talk at the Kronos Standardization Committee meetup last week. So I've included the link here. We've also copied in some. So this was kind of non-UCF approved, but I did quite a bit of promotion for the UCF. And if we continue to the slides, we can see some of those. So yeah, I talked a little bit about why VisGL moved to open governance, and we chose the Urban Computing Foundation, and the advantages of it. We're not controlled by any specific company. Projects will continue to remain open. Anyone is welcome to use, contribute, and influence. We have a legal framework that's designed to support users rather than owners. And if we go on, then we can then describe our top level projects. We can show what the sweep and scope of it, and then next one, I talked a little bit about the governance structure, so people understand how we're kind of running this, that it's, because what does it mean to be open governance? And then the next one, I tried to also make a call, you can contribute projects. You have an open source project that has something related to this. Are you interested in moving to open governance? Do you see any synergies? Please make contribution proposals. So kind of an open call to join, right? Again, very inclusive. And then the final one, was just a call to join. And it was really based on this discussion we had in the board meeting. It's open to everyone. Membership is not required. You can engage as a member, as a contributor, as a user, as a supplier. So, we could break out some of these slides, get someone from, maybe we need to have, some, I know Gail, that you're fond of starting off with some antitrust message or something. So maybe we add something like that, so it's legally good, and then we could have, like, just a set of slides that anyone who uses this and wants to promote it can just, and is invited to a conference, can throw in a couple of slides, and I think there was a fair bit of interest around this. So a lot of people are doing open source, but very few people are doing open governance. And I had, if we go back to the main presentation, so if we continue down the line, this was a couple of copied slides. Next. Can you continue? So this was, these are the things we want to do. I think here that we agreed that we want to do in this TAC. We want to promote collaboration. Next. Invite users, invite contributions. And then obviously the new one there at 16 is invite new members. Next. So what have we done, right, in terms of inviting new members? Well, a really important thing was to get the new pricing tier in place. It's turned out to be 7K for small companies. There's 5K to Linux Foundation, 2K to UCF. Some folded is in the process of joining. And, we also had the budget where we, getting more clarity. And with these two pieces in place, I feel that I can now go out and credibly, ask other companies. So I'm working with NVIDIA, we have engagement with Google, we have engagement with Esri. Now I can actually go to these. It's kind of weird to go to these people if Unfolded is not a member, and we don't have a clear story around the, the budget and so on. So I think there's enablers that have been done that are important. And then, how do we take it further? How do we make the membership appealing? So we need to clearly articulate to these companies, what is the UCF about? What are you buying into? Show the landscape as we discussed, show that it's a big deal. The budget, what do I get from my money? How is it managed and spent? And then, as I've started to talk to various companies out there, and I'm kind of, lobbying, maybe let's say just reaching out to some geospatial companies and telling that have open source projects and saying, have you considered moving to UCF? Have you, considered contributing your project? Because, if you already made it open source, right, and you're kind of like in a marginal place, but if you make it open governance and join forces with VisGL, and we invest a little bit in interoperability, your project becomes, much, much stronger. And what I see is that, and this is the same, it was a long journey at Uber to go through all of these steps. Companies are very uncertain about open source and open governance, and they don't really understand. It's easy to get very confused when you're in a company and trying to understand what are the values, and really helping these companies, clearly articulate these values and understanding that there is actually very little downside and a very big upside is something that we can, help with. So, it's both reaching out and trying to get people to become members, but also reaching out and trying to get people to actually contribute and join the bandwagon. I think I had one more slide, but okay, now that was yours. So yeah, that was the thinking, and I think that was did just before this meeting, and I think it was pretty aligned with kind of what we agreed. We want the UCF to achieve. Any comments on that?
I think it's great. I think, this coupled with maybe kind of realigning some of the with those top level projects. I like the openness in terms of kind of like membership and projects as well. I wonder if there could be a stronger appeal or path for lack of a better term, kind of grassroots open source contributions. And maybe that's not necessarily I think it's important. Maybe the UCF TAC is better focused on kind of like corporate and company, memberships, engagements, and that, setting up the structure for that. But I think we shouldn't also lose sight of, keeping the projects as open to anybody who wants to kind of contribute and build off of as well. And maybe there's some language or some part in here that can kind of show the pathway for people who want to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There are a number of really brilliant, geospatial, WebGL engineers around the world that are very interested in open source and are doing things. And, as I engage with them, I try to make it appealing for them to join. And like saying, if you're going to develop these things, why don't develop them as part of this? And, a stronger message there. Through those conversation, understand where things are successful, where there is resistance. And so I think that's a community that keep an eye on them, because, having those kind of contributors is probably, the most valuable if we can make it really, really attractive.
I just wanted to share, I put a few links in the chat. Those are shared with the board as well. So these are a few ways that we can do kind of what it was mentioning earlier. Sorry, it took me a little while to find the links. A few ways we can promote companies that are either vendors of a product that uses like the open source technologies that we have, or to say that, hey, I'm a user of this. There is a much more like heavyweight way to do this, which is a conformance program, but that does require a lot more upfront effort. So this is something that we can, I can work with our creative services team to build out with that little bit of budget we have to say, can you add a page for me like this? I need volunteers from the TAC to help vet them. So if a request comes in, we have we can write out a little process for here's how we say. That way it's not someone can just come in and say, hey, my project is Bob, can you just add it to the list? We have someone to at least say, yes, that's real, and we want to add this here. But this is these are just a few ways that few options we can use to say, like, we want to have a user ecosystem listed, or we want to have a vendor directory or something like that.
This looks good. I think maybe a lighter weight way would just be to update the website as well, to just kind of have some quick categories just on the top level page. But these are good guides to work off of as well.
Yeah, and hopefully, our creative services team is pretty flexible on budget, so if it takes more than the amount we have, they'll probably be helpful with that to build it out for us. And it's something you like Edgex, so Edgex Foundry on that website, they're still kind of building all of that out. I talked to their program manager a few weeks back, so I'm waiting for them to kind of finish it to get their they don't quite have a process yet for how they say, yes, you are, we approve you as an ecosystem user, or yes, we know that you're a real vetted end user. So I'm kind of waiting to see for their information, but we can also get started on something similar. And it's a way to, as Ib said, have a more inclusive way for people to list their logos on the site, to say, hey, this is something, so when you're pursuing members, they see the value of, look at all these companies who were involved. I see the value of promoting this.
Yeah, I think this would be perfect, right? This is exactly what we need, and if the UCF can help build out those web pages, that would be amazing. Because right now on the BizGL page, we've started adding a few company names and so on, right? And so we're kind of duplicating it. And so if we have the BizGL can refer back to the UCF ecosystem, that'd be great.
You guys, I have to unfortunately run. It's just really late. I was only got a little bit of time in there. If you guys can share also this presentation, if you don't mind, just so that I can also have to think a little bit more about it. But obviously, we will be interested in joining. I find, Gail, it's strange that we have to also put, 5,000 to the Linux Foundation, full honest. Considering that, the foundation then itself is also paying to the Linux Foundation. But you and I can talk about that separately. So, for Carl to join on the process too. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for you guys putting all this together. Bye.
Right. I have a more real suggested question is, I think most of us probably are wondering about this. When you look at the budget, and let's say that we invite 2 more members to be the to join UCF, and we'll have a surplus, let's say like about $10,000 out of the budget this year. And then if we decided, if we as a TAC saying that, hey, we have this project, we want to fund it, how can we make the process of getting it approved, or is it even possible to bring this up?
So Sean, that's part of your role as the TAC chair, as the liaison between the TAC and the governing board. Part of your role is developing those proposals. So if the TAC has a budgetary ask, to go to the board and say, here's the proposal, the TAC is requesting funding for this item. So whether whatever the amount of funding you'd want to provide to a project, it's whoever the TAC, whether it's you or a different member of the TAC chair then presents that and makes that proposal.
Yes, I understand that. I think just practically, if you think about it, the companies on the board are going to be Uber and here and me. And will the LF being part of this decision making as well?
Not at all. That's completely up to the governing board. So the governing board makes those budget decisions. The LF is not involved in those decisions. We're here to help facilitate. You know, I create the slides for you and, you know, put up the legal things to make sure that we're all in the kind of the up there. But the votes are for the governing board. So you have a vote on that as a TAC chair, the premier members, and then when we have general member representatives, and those votes come from that space. So if there is a surplus of funding for the project, and there's something the TAC wants to ask, then it would just be a matter of, you know, you presenting that to the TAC, to the governing board, and the governing board voting on it.
Good. Thank you. It's good to know, so we can, you know, from the TAC, I think getting the message out that once we do have a surplus of funding, we can start I think the most interested from the TAC is whether they can start collaborating and fund a project. So yeah, that's a good angle.
I think we made some progress.
Yeah, so like I would like to move forward to getting, I think the two action item is, let's start to think about adding these pages to our UCF website. Should we come up with a list of companies we want to add, or what will be the first thing to kick this off?
So the first step would be working with creative services to create a page like this. And then it would be a matter of those companies submitting themselves to be on the website. Yeah.
So we can just reach out to these companies and ask them to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think maybe, you know, more broadly taking some of this this sort of philosophy and stuff and kind of updating the general kind of UCF landing page with some of this information could be another good next step. And another suggestion probably for maybe a next TAC meeting agenda item could be maybe digging into, as a group, sort of like refactoring the TAC membership to better align with kind of the top level projects. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe make a list of who is actually TAC members, have a slide like that, and maybe reach out to them with the updated kind of focus and mission. Make sure people, I mean, if people care about it, they should join, and if they
Yep, I will list that as the to do for me.
Cool.
Great.
Should we close?
Yeah, so I think we made good progress. Thank you guys for coming, and well, this slide will be shared, and we will see you guys next meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.